The distress beacon cut through the void of space like a scream in the night. It had been broadcasting for 3 cycles now, its desperate plea echoing across the galaxy in a dozen different languages. The message was simple, translated through universal communication protocols that every spacefaring civilization recognized. This is Research Vessel Harmony's song. We are trapped. Our crew is dying. Please, anyone, help us. In the observation deck of the Galactic Council's monitoring station, Zephyr 973 adjusted their crystalline sensory apparatus and shuddered. The Veltar researcher had been tracking distress signals for over 200 cycles, but something about this one made their translucent skin ripple with unease. Still no response from any of the nearby systems? Zephyr asked, their voice a melodic whistle that their universal translator converted to standard galactic. Their colleague, a floating jellyfish-like being called Pools of Memory, pulsed with dim blue light. The Kethvar say the signal originates from the dead zone. The Rixtali won't even acknowledge our requests for assistance. And the Harmony fleet. Pools of Memory's tentacles curled inward with distress. They classify it as a Category 7. Hazard zone. Zephyr's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Category 7 meant certain death. It meant that whatever had trapped the research vessel was beyond the capabilities of most galactic civilizations to handle. The dead zone was aptly named, a region of space where ships went to disappear, where phenomena occurred that defied explanation, where even the most advanced rescue vessels became victims themselves. What about the Outer Rim species? Zephyr asked, though they already knew the answer. The Tormari refused to leave their homeworld. The 6 then are in hibernation, cycle for another 50 rotations. The Volcar. Pools of Memory's glow dimmed further. They launched 3 rescue attempts. None returned. A new voice interrupted their conversation, deep and resonant with authority. What about the humans? Both researchers turned to see Council Tai. Admiral Thexler approaching, their armored carapace clicking against the deck plating. The insectoid being was old even by their species standards, having served the Galactic Council for over 3 centuries. Humans? Zephyr's translator struggled with the unfamiliar word, producing a sound like breaking glass. I'm not familiar with that species, Admiral. Thexelar's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. They're new, very new, just achieved faster than light travel about 50 of their years ago. They've been sending exploration vessels throughout this sector. Pools of Memory pulsed with curiosity. What's their classification? The Admiral paused, consulting their datapad. That's interesting. They're from a planet called Earth. Classification. Their mandibles spread wider. Class 12 Deathworld. The observation deck fell silent. Both researchers stared at the Admiral in disbelief. That's impossible, Zephyr whispered. No spacefaring civilization has ever evolved on anything above a Class 7. And yet, Thexler said, here they are. They've established a small outpost in the Kepler sector, about 6 light-years from the distress signal's origin. Pools of Memory's entire body flickered with agitation. You can't be suggesting we contact them. Deathworlders are unstable, violent, unpredictable. They're also, the Admiral pointed out, our only option. Every other species capable of mounting a rescue operation has either refused or failed. The crew of Harmony's song has perhaps 1 cycle left before their life support fails completely. Zephyr looked back at the distress signal display. The beacon continued its endless plea, growing weaker with each transmission. Somewhere in the dead zone, beings were dying while the galaxy's most advanced civilization stood paralyzed by fear. What do we know about them? Zephyr asked quietly. Thexelar's datapad projected a holographic display. Images of bipedal creatures appeared. Pale and dark-skinned variants covered in strange fabric rather than natural protection. They looked fragile, soft, like they might break if touched too firmly. They call themselves humans. Average lifespan of roughly 80 standard cycles. They require a constant intake of oxygen to survive. They can only exist in a narrow temperature range. They're made primarily of water. The Admiral paused. And according to our preliminary observations, they're absolutely insane. What do you mean? Pools of Memory asked. They participate in activities for entertainment that would kill most sentient beings. They consume toxins recreationally. They deliberately subject themselves to extreme temperatures, pressures, and velocities. They engage in combat sports, where the objective is to render their opponent unconscious. Thexlar's mandibles clicked rapidly. One of our scouts observed them launching themselves from aircraft at extreme altitudes with nothing but a fabric canopy to slow their descent. For fun. Zephyr's skin rippled with nervous energy. And you think these humans might be willing to attempt a rescue in the dead zone? I think, Admiral Thexlar said, that they might be the only species crazy enough to try. The decision weighed heavily in the observation deck's recycled air. 3 beings from 3 different worlds, representatives of civilizations that had thrived for millennia, contemplating whether to ask newcomers from a death world to attempt what their combined wisdom deemed impossible. Send the message, Zephyr said finally. If we're going to damn ourselves for involving Deathworlders, at least let it be in service of saving lives. Admiral Thexlar nodded and activated their communication array. The message would travel across 6 light-years of space, carrying with it the desperate hope of the dying and the potential consequences of awakening something the galaxy might not be ready to understand. The signal was sent. There was no going back now. Chapter 2. First Contact. The bridge of the UESV Indomitable was controlled chaos. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the center of it all, her dark eyes scanning the multiple holographic displays that showed everything, from stellar cartography to engine diagnostics. At 35, she was young for a deep space commander, but her crew had learned to trust her instincts implicitly. Captain, called Lieutenant Commander James Rodriguez from the communications station, his voice tight with excitement. You need to hear this. Sarah moved to his station, noting how his hands trembled slightly as he worked the controls. James had been with her for 3 years, and she'd never seen him rattled. What is it, Rodriguez? We're receiving a transmission, on frequencies we've never encountered before. The computer's been working on translation protocols for 20 minutes, but, Captain... He looked up at her with wide eyes. This isn't from Earth. This isn't human. The bridge fell quiet except for the gentle hum of life support systems. Sarah felt her pulse quicken, but kept her voice steady. Put it through. The speakers crackled with static, then cleared to reveal a voice unlike anything human ears had ever heard. It was melodic yet mechanical, clearly translated through some kind of universal communication system. Greetings, humans of the vessel. Indomitable. This is Admiral Thexlar of the Galactic Council Deep Space Monitoring Division. We are surprised to find your species has achieved interstellar travel. Sarah exchanged glances with her first officer, Commander Marcus Webb. The tall, graying man raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Admiral, Sarah replied carefully, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Vessel Indomitable. We're honored by this first contact between our species. Indeed. However, Captain Chen, we are not contacting you for ceremonial purposes. We have a situation that requires immediate assistance, and your vessel is the only one in range capable of responding. The tactical officer, Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka, looked up from her station. Captain, I'm detecting no other ships in this sector. Whatever they want, we'd be going in alone. Admiral Thexlar continued, apparently having heard the exchange. We are aware of your isolation, Captain. The mission we're requesting is one that multiple advanced civilizations have attempted and failed. We would not ask this of you, but 37 beings are dying, and you are their only hope. Sarah felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders like a familiar cloak. What kind of mission, Admiral? A rescue operation in what we call the Dead Zone. Research vessel Harmony's Song has been trapped there for 3 cycles. Their distress beacon indicates complete system failure and life support running critical. Dead Zone? Commander Webb stepped forward. That doesn't sound encouraging. It is not, the Admiral admitted. It is a region of space where ships disappear, where phenomena occur that our scientists cannot explain, where even our most advanced rescue vessels have been lost. Lieutenant Rodriguez checked his readings. Captain, I'm showing the coordinates they're transmitting. It's approximately 18 hours at maximum warp. Why us? Sarah asked the question that had been forming in her mind. If your advanced civilizations can't handle this, what makes you think we can? There was a pause before the Admiral responded, and when they did, Sarah detected something that might have been embarrassment in the translated voice. Because, Captain Chen, your species evolved on what we classify as a Class 12 death world. You are, by our standards, completely insane. What we consider impossibly dangerous, you might consider Tuesday. The bridge crew exchanged looks of surprise, and Sarah noted with some pride, amusement. Chief Engineer David Park chuckled from his station. A death world? Webb asked. Our Earth? Your planet experiences seismic activity that would render most worlds uninhabitable. Your weather patterns include phenomena that would devastate our civilizations. Your fauna includes predators that could hunt most sentient species to extinction. And yet you not only survived, you thrived. You developed technology, art, philosophy, and eventually space travel. Sarah found herself smiling, despite the gravity of the situation. So you're asking the crazy humans to do what the sane aliens can't? Essentially, yes. She looked around her bridge. Her crew of 25 humans, each of them volunteers who had left behind everything they knew to explore the unknown depths of space. They were scientists, soldiers, engineers, and dreamers, but they were all in their own way, crazy enough to leave their homeworld behind for the sake of discovery. Admiral, Sarah said, transmit all available data on the dead zone and the trapped vessel. We'll need to know exactly what we're flying into. Captain, Thexelar's voice carried a note of surprise. You're agreeing to attempt the rescue? Admiral, 37 beings are dying. I don't care what species they are or how impossible the mission seems, we didn't come out here to play it safe. Very well. Transmitting data now. Captain Chen. Good luck. And thank you. As the transmission ended, Sarah turned to face her crew. Every eye on the bridge was focused on her, waiting for orders. Rodriguez, get me ship-wide communications. Channel open, Captain. Sarah took a deep breath. All hands, this is the captain. We've just made first contact with an alien civilization. They've asked for our help in rescuing survivors from a failed mission in what they call the dead zone. Every advanced species in the galaxy has tried and failed to complete this rescue. She paused, letting that sink in. We're going to succeed, where they failed. Not because we're better or smarter, but because we're human. Because when someone needs help, we don't calculate odds or assess risk levels. We do what needs to be done. She could hear cheers echoing through the ship's corridors via the open comm channels. All departments, prepare for maximum warp. Destination: the dead zone. Let's go show the galaxy what humans are capable of. As the Indomitable's engines powered up and the ship turned toward the unknown, Sarah couldn't help but smile. Humanity's first interstellar rescue mission was about to begin, and it was going to be anything but routine. The stars ahead seemed to shimmer with possibility and danger in equal measure. Chapter 3. Into the Abyss. 18 hours later, the UESV Indomitable dropped out of warp at the edge of the dead zone, and Sarah Chen understood immediately why every alien civilization had failed to penetrate it. Jesus Christ, whispered Lieutenant Tanaka from her tactical station. Before them stretched a region of space that defied every law of physics Sarah had ever learned. Streams of energy writhed through the void like living things, shifting colors, that didn't exist in any spectrum humans had names for. Massive objects, ships, asteroids, debris, hung suspended in impossible formations, some rotating slowly, others jerking and twitching as if pulled by invisible strings. Sensor readings, Commander Webb? Sarah asked, though she wasn't sure. She wanted to know. Marcus Webb bent over his science station, his weathered face creased with concentration. Captain, our instruments are going crazy. I'm reading gravity wells where there should be empty space, energy signatures that shouldn't be possible, and he looked up with confusion in his eyes. Time distortions. Some areas are experiencing time flow at different rates. Chief Engineer Park's voice crackled over the comm from the engine room. Captain, whatever's out there is playing hell with our systems. I've got fluctuations in the warp core that I've never seen before. Sarah studied the chaotic vista before them. Somewhere in that nightmare was a ship full of dying aliens who had trusted that someone would come for them. She turned to Rodriguez at communications. Any sign of the distress beacon? Intermittent contact, Captain. The signal keeps cutting in and out, but I think I can triangulate the source. Approximately 12 kilometers in, bearing 27 Mark IV. 12 kilometers into that? Webb shook his head. Captain, with respect, this is suicide. Those energy streams could tear us apart, and we have no idea what's causing the gravitational anomalies. Sarah looked around her bridge crew. She saw fear in their eyes, but also determination. They were scared, only an idiot wouldn't be, but they were still here, still ready to follow her into the unknown. Options, people. How do we get through that without becoming another piece of floating debris? Lieutenant Commander Chen Wei, their navigator, spoke up from her station. Captain, if I plot a course following the edge of the larger energy streams, avoiding the gravity wells that Commander Webb identified, we might be able to thread our way through. It would require precise maneuvering and constant course corrections, but it's possible. How long would that take? At 1/4 impulse, approximately 2 hours to reach the distress beacon's location. Sarah nodded. And how long do the survivors have? Rodriguez checked his readings. Based on the deteriorating signal strength and the alien admiral's estimates, maybe 3 hours before life support fails completely. That's cutting it close, Webb observed. Then we'd better not waste time, Sarah replied. She activated ship-wide communications. All hands, this is the captain. We're about to enter a region of space that's unlike anything humanity has ever encountered. I won't lie to you. This is dangerous. But there are people counting on us, and we've never let anyone down before. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Remember, we're not just representing Earth out here. We're representing the human spirit, the same spirit that drove our ancestors to cross oceans, climb mountains, and reach for the stars. Today, we reach a little further. Sarah closed the Yao channel and turned to her crew. Wei, plot that course. Tanaka, keep our shields at maximum and watch for anything that looks hostile. Park, I need everything you can give me from the engines. Rodriguez, maintain contact with the distress beacon. It's our lifeline. Aye, Captain, came the chorus of responses. Take us in, 1/4 impulse. The Indomitable moved forward into the dead zone, and immediately everything changed. The ship's lights flickered as they passed through the first energy stream, and Sarah felt a strange tingling sensation across her skin. Shields holding, Tanaka reported, but I'm reading some kind of scanning effect, like something's examining our ship. Examining us for what? Unknown, Captain. They pressed deeper into the zone, weaving between impossible formations of twisted space-time. Sarah watched the main screen as debris from dozens of different civilizations drifted past them, some recognizable as ship components, others so alien that her mind couldn't process their function. Captain, Webb called out, his voice tight, with concern. I'm reading life signs on some of that debris. Faint, but there. Sarah's blood ran cold. Survivors from the failed rescue attempts? Possibly. But Captain, some of these readings suggest they've been here for months, maybe years, and according to our chronometers, they should have died long ago. The implications hit her like a physical blow. The time distortions. They're not just affecting space, they're affecting the passage of time itself. Some of those people might be experiencing time so slowly that they're still dying from injuries sustained months ago. My God, Rodriguez whispered. This place is a torture chamber. Sarah forced herself to focus on the mission. They couldn't save everyone. Not yet. But they could save the crew of Harmony's song. How much further to the distress beacon? 8 kilometers, Captain, Wei reported. But we're approaching a cluster of gravitational anomalies. I'm not sure we can navigate through them. On the screen ahead, space itself seemed to fold and twist, creating a maze of distorted physics that made Sarah's eyes water to look at. Captain, Park's voice came from engineering, strained with effort. The warp core is resonating with something out there. I'm having to constantly adjust the containment field to keep us from having a breach. Sarah felt the weight of command, pressing down on her. Every instinct screamed that they should turn back, that no rescue was worth risking 25 lives. But then she thought about the message from Admiral Thexlar, about civilizations too afraid to enter this nightmare, about 37 beings slowly dying, while the galaxy's greatest minds declared the situation hopeless. "We're not turning back," she said firmly. "Wei, can you plot a course through those anomalies?" I think so, Captain, but it would require flying at extremely low speed and making constant micro-adjustments. One mistake and we could be torn apart or trapped in a gravity well. Then we won't make any mistakes. Sarah activated the intercom. "All hands, secure for extreme maneuvering. We're going in." As the Indomitable began its delicate dance through the maze of twisted space-time, Sarah couldn't help but wonder if they were about to become the latest addition to the Dead Zone's collection of failed rescues. But 37 lives hung in the balance, and that was all that mattered. Chapter 4. Against all odds, the research vessel, Harmony's Song, was dying. Captain Sarah Chen could see it on the main screen as the Indomitable finally broke through the last gravitational maze. A sleek, organic-looking vessel that seemed to be grown rather than built, its bioluminescent hull flickering weakly like a fading heartbeat. "There." Rodriguez pointed at his readings. "I've got multiple life signs aboard, but they're weak. Whatever's keeping them alive won't last much longer." Sarah studied the alien ship. It was beautiful in its own way, with flowing lines that suggested it had been designed by beings who understood that technology and art weren't mutually exclusive. But now it hung motionless in the void, trapped in the center of a swirling vortex of energy that pulsed with malevolent purpose. "Commander Webb, analysis of that energy field." Marcus Webb was bent over his science station, his gray hair damp with perspiration. "Captain, it's like nothing I've ever seen. The field appears to be some kind of temporal distortion matrix. It's not just trapping the ship, it's slowing down time inside the field. That's why their life support has lasted so long, but it's also why they can't escape." "Can we penetrate it?" I don't know. The energy levels are enormous. Our shields might hold long enough to reach them, but getting back out?" He shook his head. "The mathematics don't work, Captain. The field gets stronger the deeper you go." Lieutenant Tanaka looked up from her tactical station. "Captain, I'm reading something else. The field isn't natural. There's a pattern to it, almost like it's being generated by something." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "Are you saying something is deliberately trapping ships here?" That's what it looks like." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The Dead Zone wasn't just a dangerous region of space. It was a trap, but set by whom and why? "Captain," Rodriguez called out urgently, "I'm receiving a transmission from the alien ship. It's weak, but I can patch it through." "Do it." The speakers filled with static, then cleared to reveal a voice that was barely above a whisper, translated through their alien communication protocols. This is Research Leader Zentar of the Harmony's Song. Is someone there? Please respond." Sarah moved to the communication station. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth vessel Indomitable. We're here to get you out." The relief in the alien's voice was palpable. "Captain Chen, we had given up hope. The other rescue vessel, they're all here, trapped like us. We've been trying to reach them, but the field..." "Other rescue vessels?" Sarah exchanged glances with Webb. "How many?" 7 ships, Captain. 312 souls, including my crew. All of us slowly dying as our life support systems fail one by one." Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the full weight of the situation. They hadn't come to rescue 37 beings. They'd come to rescue over 300, and they were just one ship with a crew of 25 humans who, by galactic standards, were completely insane. "Research Leader Zentar, we're going to get you out of there. All of you. I need you to gather your crew and prepare for emergency evacuation." Captain Chen, forgive me, but 7 rescue attempts have failed. What makes you think? Because we're human, Sarah interrupted. And humans don't know when to quit. She closed the channel and turned to her crew. Every face on, the bridge looked back at her with a mixture of fear and determination. People, we've got a problem. We're not just rescuing 1 ship, we're rescuing 8 ships and over 300 beings. And we're going to have to figure out how to do it, while whatever's generating that field tries to trap us too. Chief Engineer Park's voice crackled over the intercom. Captain, I might have an idea. If that field is artificially generated, there has to be a source. If we can find it and disrupt it. The field collapses and everyone goes free, Sarah finished. Park, you beautiful genius, can you locate the source? Give me 10 minutes with the sensor array and I'll find it. You've got 5. While Park worked, Sarah studied the tactical display. 8 ships trapped in an energy field that got stronger the deeper you went. The mathematics were simple and terrifying. The deeper they went to rescue the trapped ships, the harder it would be to get back out. Captain, Tanaka called out, I'm reading movement from several of the trapped vessels. It looks like they're trying to communicate with each other. Put it on screen. The main display shifted to show the entire field, with 8 ships scattered throughout its depths like insects in amber. Faint energy signatures moved between them. Communications lasers, Sarah realized. The trapped crews were coordinating something. Rodriguez, can you tap into their communications? Working on it? Got it. Captain, they're trying to coordinate a simultaneous engine burst. They think if they all fire their engines at the same time, they might be able to disrupt the field from the inside. Webb looked up from his calculations. That's a death sentence. The energy feedback would destroy every ship simultaneously. Then we need to give them another option. Sarah activated ship-wide communications. All hands, this is the captain. We've found the survivors, but the situation is more complex than we anticipated. We're not just rescuing 1 crew. We're rescuing 8 ships with over 300 beings aboard. She paused, letting that sink in. The easy thing would be to report back to the Galactic Council and let them figure out a solution. The smart thing would be to cut our losses and evacuate just the crew we came for. We're not going to do either of those things. She could hear murmurs of agreement echoing through the ship's corridors. We're going to do the human thing. We're going to save everyone, no matter how impossible it seems, because that's who we are. Captain, Park's voice came over the intercom, excited. I found it. The source of the field. It's a derelict station about 15 kilometers from the trapped ships. Massive energy readings, but the signature is old. Ancient. How ancient? Millions of years, Captain. This thing predates every civilization we've encountered. Sarah felt pieces clicking into place in her mind. It's a trap, an ancient trap set by someone we've never heard of. The question is, how do we spring it without getting caught ourselves? Captain, Tanaka said suddenly, I have an idea. What if we don't try to avoid the trap? What if we trigger it deliberately? Sarah turned to her tactical officer. Explain. The field gets stronger the deeper you go, right? But what if we overload it? What if we dive straight into the center at maximum speed with our shields at full power? The energy feedback might be enough to destabilize the entire matrix. Webb ran quick calculations. The odds of survival would be terrible, Sarah finished. Absolutely terrible. Which means it's exactly the kind of plan that might work. She looked around her bridge crew. It's also suicide. I won't order anyone to... Captain, Rodriguez interrupted. With respect, shut up. We're all volunteers here. We knew the risks when we signed up. Besides, Tanaka added with a grin, what's the worst that could happen? We die? We were probably going to die anyway. At least this way we take 300 people with us to safety. Sarah felt a surge of pride in her crew that threatened to overwhelm her. These 25 humans, these beautiful, crazy, impossible humans, were ready to risk everything for beings they'd never met, from species they'd never heard of. All right then, she said, her voice steady despite the emotion churning inside her. Park, give me everything the engines have. Tanaka, maximum shields. Wei, plot a course straight for the center of that field. Aye, Captain, came the unified, Response. Sarah activated the communication array one more time. Research Leader Zentar, this is Captain Chen. Tell all the trapped ships to prepare for immediate departure. When that field collapses, they'll need to be ready to move fast. Captain, what are you planning? Sarah smiled, though she knew the alien couldn't see her. Something incredibly stupid that just might work. Stand by. As the Indomitable turned toward the heart of the energy field, Sarah couldn't help but think that this was the most human thing they'd ever done, rushing headlong into certain death because someone somewhere needed help. The stars ahead disappeared as they plunged into the swirling maelstrom of energy, and Sarah Chen led her crew toward either the greatest rescue in galactic history or the most spectacular failure humanity had ever attempted. Either way, they were going to face it together. Epilogue. Ripples across the galaxy. 6 months after the incident at the Dead Zone, Admiral Thexelar stood in the council chamber of the Galactic Alliance, facing representatives from 47 different civilizations. The massive chamber buzzed with conversations in dozens of languages, all focused on the same topic that had dominated political discourse for half a standard cycle. The humans. Order, called the council speaker, a massive crystalline being whose voice resonated through harmonic frequencies. We will now hear Admiral Thexelar's final report on the Dead Zone incident and its implications. Thexelar approached the central podium, their mandibles clicking nervously. In all their centuries of service, they had never delivered a report quite like this one. Honored representatives, they began. As you know, 6 months ago, we made the unprecedented decision to contact a newly discovered spacefaring species for assistance with a rescue operation that had defeated our most advanced civilizations. The chamber fell silent. The humans of the vessel Indomitable not only succeeded in penetrating the Dead Zone, they managed to rescue all 317 beings trapped there across 8 different vessels, representing 12 species. A ripple of amazement passed through the chamber. Even though they'd all read the preliminary reports, hearing it stated so baldly was still difficult to process. More significantly, Thexelar continued, they accomplished this by deliberately triggering a massive overload of an ancient containment system, using their own ship as a catalyst. According to our analysis, they had approximately a 0.3% chance of survival. Representative Keelthera of the Rixtali Coalition leaned forward, their silver skin shimmering with agitation. Admiral, are you telling this assembly that they succeeded? Through pure luck? No, Representative. They succeeded through what can only be described as controlled insanity, combined with extraordinary competence. Captain Chen and her crew executed a plan that required split-second timing, perfect coordination, and a complete disregard for their own safety. The Veltar representative Harmony of Purpose whistled softly. And the aftermath? Thexelar's expression shifted to something that might have been amusement. The aftermath has been educational. The humans have established diplomatic relations with all 12 species they rescued. 3 of those species have requested formal alliances with Earth. The Kethvar have invited human scientists to study their advanced propulsion systems. The Volkar want to hire human mercenaries. Mercenaries? The speaker's harmonic voice carried a note of alarm. It seems that word of human capabilities has spread throughout the Outer Rim. Species that have been locked in territorial disputes for centuries are suddenly interested in having humans mediate their conflicts. Several trade confederations want human escorts for their merchant vessels, and at least 6 civilizations have formally requested that humans establish colonies in their systems. Representative Zarqueth of the 6th N Empire stood, their multiple arms gesturing emphatically. This is precisely what we were concerned about. We cannot have Deathworlders running loose throughout the galaxy, destabilizing established order. With respect, Representative, Thexelar replied. The established order failed to save 300 lives. The humans succeeded. By accident. Actually, a new voice interrupted. It wasn't an accident at all. Every being in the chamber turned to see Captain Sarah Chen walking down the central aisle, flanked by 2 other humans. She wore a simple, blue uniform with insignia that none of the aliens recognized. but her bearing left no doubt about her authority. "Captain Chen," the speaker intoned, "this is highly irregular. You are not scheduled to address the council." Sarah smiled, that peculiar expression that most aliens found unsettling. "I apologize, but I thought you might want to hear a human perspective on all this talk about humans." She reached the podium and looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes or optical sensors of dozens of different species. "6 months ago, you called us crazy for attempting a rescue in the dead zone. You were right. We are crazy, but we're crazy in a very specific way." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "We're crazy enough to help. You risk destabilizing galactic civilization," Representative Zarketh accused. "Do we?" Sarah asked. "Because from where I stand, galactic civilization was already destabilized. You had trade routes that couldn't be protected, territory disputes that couldn't be resolved, and disaster zones that couldn't be penetrated. You had problems that your advanced wisdom and sophisticated technology couldn't solve." She gestured toward Admiral Thexler. "The Admiral asked us to help because you were out of options. Well, the good news is that we're not going anywhere. The bad news is that we're not going anywhere." Representative Kyle Thera leaned forward. "What exactly are you proposing, Captain?" "I'm not proposing anything. I'm informing you. Humanity is establishing the Sol Emergency Response Corps. We're setting up stations throughout this region of space, staffed with human crews and equipped with human ships. When disasters happen, when people need help, when situations arise that require someone crazy enough to try the impossible, we'll be there." The chamber erupted in dozens of different languages, all expressing variations of alarm, excitement, and confusion. Sarah waited for the noise to die down. "We're not asking for permission. We're not asking for funding. We're not asking for political approval. We're just letting you know that if you need help, really need help, humans will answer the call." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and one more thing. We're recruiting. Any species that wants to join us is welcome. All we ask is that you be willing to risk everything to help people you've never met." As Captain Chen and her escorts left the chamber, the assembled representatives sat in stunned silence. Finally, the speaker's harmonic voice filled the space. "Motion to establish a formal diplomatic protocol for dealing with human emergency response operations." "Seconded," came a chorus of voices. Admiral Thexelar watched the proceedings with something approaching wonder. In their centuries of service to the Galactic Council, they had seen civilizations rise and fall, witnessed technological marvels and political disasters, but they had never seen anything quite like this. A species barely 50 years into space travel had just announced their intention to become the galaxy's emergency responders, and everyone was taking them seriously, because 6 months ago, when it mattered most, they had proven that sometimes crazy was exactly what the universe needed. 3 years later, the Sol Emergency Response Corps had handled 47 major rescue operations, prevented 3 wars through what they called aggressive mediation, and somehow managed to establish peaceful contact with a previously unknown hive mind species that had been terrorizing the Outer Rim for decades. The humans had done this by walking directly into the hive mind's territory without weapons, carrying nothing but medical supplies and a message that roughly translated to, "Hi, we heard you were having problems. Can we help?" It turned out the hive mind had been attacking ships because they were suffering from a genetic plague that was slowly killing their young. The galaxy's greatest medical minds had declared the disease incurable. Human doctors had cured it in 6 weeks using what they casually referred to as basic gene therapy techniques. Captain Sarah Chen, now Admiral Chen of the Cirque Fleet, stood on the observation deck of Sanctuary Station, the Corps' primary base of operations. Through the massive viewport, she could see ships from dozens of species coming and going, some arriving with emergency calls, others departing with human rescue teams, and still others simply here to trade or share information. "Admiral?" The voice belonged to Commander Yuki Tanaka, her former tactical officer who now served as Sanctuary Station's operations director. "We're receiving a priority distress call from the Andromeda sector." Sarah turned, noting the tension in Yuki's voice. What's the situation? It's complicated. The message is from the Eternal Hierarchy. Sarah raised an eyebrow. The Eternal Hierarchy was one of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful civilizations. They had never requested human assistance before, viewing humanity as useful but primitive. What do they need? Yuki consulted her datapad. Their capital world is under attack by something they describe as entities from beyond the galactic rim. Their entire defense fleet has been destroyed. They're requesting immediate military assistance. Military assistance? Sarah shook her head. We're rescue specialists, not a military force. That's what I told them. Their response was, interesting. Yuki pulled up the transmission. They said, and I quote, "We have tried wisdom. We have tried technology. We have tried every rational solution our civilization can devise. We need someone insane enough to fight gods." Sarah couldn't help but smile. Even the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had learned that sometimes the impossible required a human touch. How many ships can we deploy? 12 vessels are available for immediate departure. That's about 300 personnel. Against gods? Sarah laughed. Sounds about right. Tell them we're on our way. As alarms began sounding throughout Sanctuary Station and human crews rushed to their ships, Sarah reflected on how much had changed since that first desperate call in the dead zone. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy not as conquerors or diplomats, but as the species willing to help when help seemed impossible. They were the galaxy's emergency responders, its crisis counselors, its last resort when all rational options had been exhausted. They were, in short, exactly what they had always been, humans who didn't know when to quit. And as the Cirque fleet prepared to face entities from beyond the galactic rim, Sarah Chen smiled and wondered what impossible thing they would accomplish next. After all, they were just getting started. The end.